Hello beautiful people, we'll be making delicious Nigerian puff puff. I'll give detailed step-by-step guide for making this yummy snack. Whether you're making it for business or for home use, the measurements inclusive. Here I have all-purpose flour and I'm sifting it in. When I make bread videos, I don't necessarily sift in my flour because I'll have to knead it. But for puff puff, we are not kneading. It's just a process of mixing and mixing. And when you sift it, it helps to break in the flour molecules, and it also helps to remove impurities from the flour, especially when you've had your flour for a while. And I brought in sugar, and I also brought in the yeast. Now I brought in milk flavor. You can also use milk powder as well. And I sifted in ground nutmeg. This will add amazing flavor to your puff puff. Just a little is fine. And I also added in salt. And we're going to mix all this in to combine properly. If you observe, I didn't add the salt together with the yeast. Mixing yeast and salt together doesn't really go well. And one thing you have to consider when making puff puff is to prove your yeast. That way you're sure that the yeast is still alive, not after going through all the process you found out that the yeast is not good, and thereby not helping your flour to rise. Here I brought in room temperature water. The puff puff we're making today is that chewy puff puff, and I've washed my hands and we're going to start mixing this in. We are looking for a certain consistency, and the type of flour you're using will also determine you getting that consistency. If you're not making the chewy type of puff puff, you can add less water. But we are making the chewy type, so our consistency will have to be different from the other type of puff puff. We're going to keep mixing this. I added in the water gradually so that we don't overdo it. Remember, at Glory Homemaker, we give you value for your time. I kept mixing it till we got it to this point where it's all fluffy and smooth. And I cleaned my hands with the scraper and also the sides of the bowl. We'll cover this and we'll allow this to rest and rise between 30 minutes to 45 minutes. You have to use a big bowl so that this doesn't spill over when it's rising. I live in a warm country, so I don't need to keep this in a warm area. But if you live in a cold area, you might have to send this to your oven to proof. Bear in mind that when mixing the flour with water, it shouldn't be too loose so that you can be able to squeeze it out like this. If it's too loose, you will not be able to do this. And I'm using a wide pan to fry this, and you will need lots of oil. We'll allow the oil to get hot, and to know if it's hot enough, with the skewer, you can see the bubbles coming up. That is to tell me that it's hot enough. Another way to check if your oil is ready is to scoop in warm butter, and it should rise up to the surface of the oil within 10 seconds. If it sits back in, give it a little time. That means the oil is not yet ready. Mine is ready, and we'll start scooping in. Observe how I'm scooping in. You scoop some butter and you gently close your palm and squeeze it out between your thumb and your index finger. Gently, one at a time. This is not rocket science. You can also do this. Practice, they say, makes perfect. By the time you keep doing this, you'll be surprised at how you will become an expert in it. And it will keep floating. And we're frying this on medium heat. We'll keep frying till it turns golden brown in color. If the oil is too hot, they're going to burn so quickly without cooking well on the inside. And if the oil is not hot enough, it's going to soak up oil. Many people complain about not getting the shapes of puff puff when they're making this. The solution to this is to follow simple instructions in this video. If you're not sure of your measurements as a beginner, you'll need a kitchen scale to scale the ingredients you'll be using. Don't just guess and assume that it's going to come out well. If any ingredient is not in the right proportion, it can affect the whole process of your puff puff making. And some are going to turn by themselves in the process of frying it, while you have to turn the others by yourself. And some will be difficult to turn, but just keep playing around it and you'll get the perfect results. Look at this beautiful smooth ball shapes of puff puff, and it took between 5 to 7 minutes for all this to get ready. Remember, we are frying on medium heat. I'm going to start bringing out from the first ones I put into the oil because they're not all going to cook at the same time. And I brought this out with my ready serviette paper. That will help you to drain some of the oil. So I'll fry the other batches of the camera, but note that after frying a batch, allow the oil to get hot again for about 30 seconds to a minute before putting in the next batch so that the oil will get back to the adequate temperature. And look at how yummy, how soft and fluffy this is. This is the chewy type of puff puff and it's so nice. I hope this video was helpful to you. You can drop any questions or suggestions and I'll be glad to hear from you. These are the ones that made it to the table. Others got missing in transition. I know you understand what I mean. These can be stored in the fridge and lightly microwaved when needed. This is a simple recipe that can be followed and you'll get great results. I hope you make puff puff with this recipe and let me know how yours came out. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.